People get this very confused. You can set boundaries, but you can't make people respect them. It's shocking, right? Now, we've all tried to make other people be who we want and behave how we want and give us what we expect of them. And it's normal to want that. But if the other person is not inclined, it's exhausting to try to make them comply. Some people are aligned with us and they're going to cooperate with us anyway. And it's the ones who are not aligned with us where everything gets jammed up because these people are not interested in our boundaries. They're interested in what they want. And it's we who are getting confused, thinking that we've made some kind of an agreement with them when really we have two people who just want different things. And because this is the case, it's you who has to stand up for what you need, even when you have to walk away to get it. Thinking we can make other people be who we demand them to be is part of the same thinking that makes boundaries hard for us in the first place. It's easy to think it's someone else's job, rather than our own job, to have boundaries and to stand up for them. And the sooner you recognize this, the sooner you can get free of this thought prison that if you just yell loud enough, repeat yourself enough, they'll drop what they want and they will want what you want. Now, if you have to fight about it, you're probably not aligned. And this is painful to face. And what we can't face honestly tends to generate confusion. So how did we get like this? Well, if you grew up with abuse and neglect and you've only started healing, you might be somewhat new at doing this boundary thing. And it will seem like the problem is other people. All problems look like they come from other people. And yes, sometimes the problem is other people. For example, when they attack or violate another person or steal from them. But a lot of the anger and frustration that you might go through around boundaries is really caused by misunderstanding what a boundary is. So let's talk about that. Now, a lot of people ask me, how can they get loved ones to better honor their boundaries? How to get them to be more sensitive about CPTSD sensitivities, for example. And it's totally normal and appropriate to want that kind of support and respect. But I'm going to say something very tough love here. You can ask a person to understand you and what you want and what you feel you need. And you can even ask them to help you avoid getting triggered. But they are not obliged to do any of it. And that doesn't mean they don't care about you, and it doesn't mean they don't support you. In fact, when they give you space to notice your own trauma reactions and to work on those, inside, it might be the best, most loving, supportive thing they can do. And I'm going to tell you why. Even though you've been told a lot of things to the contrary, like that you have a right to get people to respect your boundaries, even when your boundaries are extreme, even when you're acting out of that hurt place inside. I don't actually think it's a right. It's your right to ask for what you want and for what you think would be helpful when something is hard for you. But trying to force other people to help you manage your trauma reactions isn't fair and it isn't going to work. Other people have a right to not honor your boundaries. You have a right to walk away. In fact, when you try to force people to do what you want, it's a form of control. And everyone in our lives has the right not to be controlled by us. You have the right to ask for what you want, and you have the right to not spend time with that person. But they have the right to be themselves. So sometimes when we're forcing the idea of a relationship, but we don't actually accept how that person is, it'll show up as huge arguments about people not respecting your boundaries. Now, someone who cares about you might be willing to change the way they do things if you ask them, but they might not. And PTSD thinking will tell you that someone you love, who you're attracted to, who's doing something that bothers you, owes it to you to change. But I want to teach you why in any situation where you're not actually restrained, these people aren't actually doing anything to you. They're being themselves, which you may not like, but they're not preventing your healing. Okay, you don't have to like them. You don't have to be with them. And that's what dating is for, to find out if this is somebody that you like and accept and want to be with. Right now, you're thinking, what is Anna saying? But that's what I'm saying. When people do their own thing and give you space to work out your own triggers and learn to calm your own PTSD symptoms, You then have an opportunity to learn the only thing that really works or can be sustained, and that is self-regulation. You calm your triggers. You don't put that responsibility on other people. When you're regulated, you have choices. And one of your choices, if you don't like what someone's doing, is to not be around them. You don't like people drinking? Maybe don't be around people drinking. When your brain is regulated, you might see more clearly that another person isn't really doing anything wrong when they drink, or you might see they're really a jerk, or they're a bully, or they drink too much, and maybe you ask them to change once or twice. If you ask them 3 times and they still don't change, now you're up against it. To ask any more after 3 times is basically an attempt to control them. And even if you succeed at making them do something because you made them do it, it's not going to bring that harmony and that good feeling of being supported and connected that you're actually craving. So at that point, if change isn't going to happen, you either let go of your grievance or you let go of the relationship. Because if you push and nag and repeat your demands that they change, it'll only suck the soul out of you and everybody who's in earshot of this argument you keep having with them. It's a beautiful idea that if someone else would change, you would be okay. But even when you can get someone to strike that bargain with you, to try to fix you by being what you want, you only put your trauma wounds into a little hermetically sealed chamber. What prompts real healing is usually friction, problems. People do their thing around us and we get triggered. It's impossible to control or avoid. And that's why so many people with childhood trauma end up retreating and getting as far away from people as they can. Isolation might prevent triggers, but it also prevents fulfillment. So our challenge is to stay away from those who would abuse us, and with everyone else, to be at peace with people as they are. Peace with other people comes from accepting and knowing that healing happens in here. Other people in our lives, they matter. Their behavior matters, but they don't have the power to heal us. And even if they were willing to try, they couldn't heal us. Have you been through this experience before where you're trying to help someone and they just won't change? Or when someone tries to help you? This happens all the time. This could happen when you read a self-help book, or you see a therapist, or you ask a friend for advice, or when you watch my videos. I can't change you, okay? I can't change you, and neither can anyone else. Maybe I can influence you though, but only if you want to learn from me. And that's true for therapy too. It's something that a person has to engage with. They can't, no one can just like wave a wand. And even then, it only works if the obstacles that you carry around learning and changing don't get in the way. I'm not saying everything is a construct of our minds or of our will, but people influence each other very deeply for good and for evil. And this is where I suggest you put your focus on choosing carefully who will influence you and thinking carefully about how much you can expect to influence other people. So let's talk about what's realistic for you to expect from other people. They can potentially provide a calm and safe environment. Not everyone can do that. And they can encourage us when we're freaked out, and they can help us and remind us to get our tools and deal with the disturbance that's within. For me, the tools are a pen and paper. But you'll be amazed. When you learn to regulate your trauma symptoms, the overreactions, the unreasonableness, the panics, the demands we put on other people because it seems like that's the only thing that'll do it, and that if we could just have that and they would change, we'd be okay. You'll be amazed how much easier it is for other people to love you and be close to you when you are able to release that huge demand on them. So how can you do this? When you're in that place where you want to make a demand on someone, it usually means it's time to do what I call stop and drop. Stop the action that's escalating conflict and drop into a chair where you can use your tools. I use this writing, Fears and Resentments. I teach this in a free course, The Daily Practice, that's always clickable down below in the description section. And don't forget, there's a little more button there. You can open up the whole description section and see everything. So that's what I use when I stop and drop. I need tools that I can use in any moment when things are heating up, when I'm about to get dysregulated or start pushing on people in a way that's going to hurt the relationship. I don't want to do that. Stop, drop, sit down, get your pen and paper, if you want to use my tool, and you begin to write the fears and resentments that are driving you. When you get relief from the fearful, resentful thoughts and things get clearer, The fire burns off. The truth is just sitting there. It's cool. You can see it. You can touch it. Things become real again. It's not your fault that you were abused and neglected as a kid, but now it's you. You're the one who needs to stop acting out on the trauma and learn to try things and notice your triggers when they happen and develop techniques to calm them. Now, some people will be very open to learning what you're working on, and they're going to support you, but probably not when you're yelling at them. It kind of defeats the purpose, right? So how do we do that? How do we get neutral? You'll hear me say this a lot. It helps if you don't talk about it. When you're triggered and you know it, pause. Your thinking is getting dysregulated, and if it's anger, then by definition, it's going to feel unreasonable to other people. It's an argument, and you'd be better off not having an argument. If you have to argue, you can do it later. Later is a good time. It's a good time to express yourself and say what's bothering you and what you need, but not when things are heated. Do it when you're re-regulated again, when you can choose your words and not just have them fly out of your mouth like knives. Now, this would be crazy talk if there wasn't, in fact, a way to get regulated, but we can do that, and it starts with owning the problem, not blaming other people that we feel dysregulated, not with our words, not in our minds, because healing can really move forward when we can just recognize, I'm having the reaction. And then, this is the hard part, resist the urge to say a lot about how you're feeling. You can say something like, oh dear, I'm having one of my reactions, or hold on, I'm feeling really dysregulated, I need to get sorted. But just don't set yourself up to insist that you get heard about how you're feeling. When you're dysregulated, that's just very unlikely to be the thing that's going to make you feel better. It's going within, working your tools, bringing your dysregulation back into re-regulation. Don't wave your triggered feelings like a flag, trying to get other people to deal with them. It hasn't worked well for me, I'll tell you that. And this can be your new approach. This and giving yourself a little time to write the fears and resentments going through your mind. And this is a very specific technique. I encourage you to learn it. You can also learn it in my book, Re-Regulated, where I teach it in great detail. There's a whole chapter on how to do it, plus a whole deep appendix at the end with all the FAQs about why do we word it this way. It's a simple technique, but a lot of people, you're going to have questions like, why do I do it this way? Why do I say this? And if you do it specifically how I'm teaching you, it is more likely to help you actually release the feelings rather than dwell on them, focus on them, make them stronger. So this is a new approach for you. You can give yourself time, write the fears and resentments, and it can work wonders. After that, whatever you need to discuss is going to be simpler and lighter and easier for the other person to hear. And that's a good thing when it happens. But the nicest feeling of all is knowing that whatever happens, whatever present day reaction rises up out of your childhood trauma, you're going to be able to deal with it. You'll keep your boundaries, and gradually you can open your heart to all the love and fun that life holds for you. It's time. Now, if you're finding this information sounds like you might want to learn a little more about how past trauma can affect people's ability to connect to others in a healthy way. I have a quiz that lists a whole series of signs that this might be happening. You can see if they're happening for you. And I have that available to click on right here. It's free, and you can download it right now. And I'll see you very soon.